This podcast is part of the SJ Network. Go to s-j-network.com for more great podcasts and for contact information on publicist Steve Joyner.
You are listening to In a City Like Yours, a semi-monthly podcast featuring interesting people with interesting life stories. This podcast may contain language and/or subject matter not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm your host, Michael Glenn Moore. If you have an interesting life story and would like to appear on the show, please drop me a note at inacityLikeYours@gmail.com. Also, join our Facebook page at In a City Like Yours Podcast to receive notices of new releases and other info. Now, please welcome today's guest.
My name is Gary Arnold. I live in Oxford, Pennsylvania, and I have quite an unusual story to share. So let's go back to December 2017. This is a moment where it profoundly has changed the trajectory of my life. So I work in academia. I work at the local HBCU, the university, and I've been there over a decade. I usually take my lunch in the library, the university library. It's just a quiet place to go to get away from the students, to have a little me time. So this was right before Christmas holiday break. Students had already gone home. I go over to the library, and I was thinking, it's right before Christmas, I'm going to read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Now, if you're familiar with the story, it's actually a short story compared to the TV versions. So it's not much of a read at all, but it's still very inspirational. And I sit down, and I'm looking at the book, and I get this really, really strange ear-ringing sound in only my right ear. Now, it's got a coded component to it. It's so weird. It's annoying. I mean, it's extreme. Crystalline sound, and only my right ear. And I'm thinking, what is this noise? Now, again, the students had left, and the library was virtually empty. I was at the top floor of the library. The lowest floor, that's where the librarians are. So I was thinking, there's something like some kind of alarm or something that's been triggered that makes this noise. But anyhow, in my pocket, I have this old track phone, right, from the mid-2000s. And the reason I have it is because my wife, she wanted me to be able to, to reach me. I mean, it wasn't enough just to have the office phone. She said, I need to be, able to reach you in case, let's say, you're on the road or whatever. And I'm kind of old school tech-wise. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go out and buy a smartphone because I wouldn't use most of the features on that. So just a little bit before this happened, I had gone out with my daughter to the local Rite Aid in Oxford, and I saw an old track phone there, and it just is very simple. Didn't have all the bells and whistles that today's phones have. And the clerk said, well, it's like $10 plus tax in Pennsylvania. I looked at the clerk and I said, my daughter can vouch for this. I said, there's no way I'm paying that much for this old-looking phone. So I talked the clerk down to $5, and the clerk accepted it. So here I have this old school track phone, and I'll bring you back to the situation where I'm getting ready to read Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It's December of 2017, and this strange, freakish noise is only in my right ear. It's not like the traditional ear ringing that everybody's had. This is something different. So I think a thought comes into my head. I have this old school track phone, and I know it has a voice recorder, a digital voice recorder feature on there. So I thought, wow, maybe I could record this annoying sound and then, figure out what it is on playback. So I get out my old school track phone. It's a Alcatel A205G. That's the model. And I push record. All right, now I don't say anything. I just push record. All right, now it goes on for about 10 seconds. 15 seconds, and when that noise stops, I push the stop button on the digital voice recorder. On playback, I was expecting to hear this like squelch, this kind of noise, this crystalline, squelchy kind of noise, but instead, thing that just blows my mind. Instead, upon playback of the recording, I hear a voice that whispers my name. It says Mr. Arnold. So I'm thinking, okay, is someone goofing? Is someone playing a trick on me? All the students are gone. The floor is completely empty. I just look around. I'm mystified as to how it's recorded. This whispered, this little voice whispers my name. So I'm thinking, okay, well, that's really odd, bizarre. And it said Mr. Arnold, which I thought, well, that's kind of like, that's what I'm called here, because I'm not a professor. I mean, I work in academia, as I said, and I teach writing from an academic support role. So yeah, I've been called Mr. Arnold before by other students, and that's on my desk and everything. That's what you have. Anyhow, so I left, like I said, perplexed, and curiosity got the best of me. So the next day I thought, well, can lightning strike twice? What is this? So I go back for my lunch break, and no one's there. It's right before the holidays. The noise does return. And this time, I have a question in mind. So when I push record, when this crystalline-coated, strange, annoying noise happens, say, is there anybody there? Upon playback, before I ask the question, strange thing, most of the time, these ethereal entities answer the question, or are heard to answer the question before I even ask it. And this time they said, yes, people. Now, I'm more than concerned, because I'm thinking, okay, well, this isn't normal. I mean, I was raised in a Christian household, and in a sense, always had an abstract idea of God, and how there's a heaven and there's a hell, probably, where, because life, if you look around, there are things in life that I don't like, and they're still true. Scorpions and rattlesnakes and stuff, mosquitoes and ticks. So I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, there's probably a hell too. So even though I don't want it to be true. Well, anyhow, this strange phenomenon was something that it blows my mind. I'm like, well, what does this mean? Am I cracking up? That's the first thing that comes to mind. This can't be rational. This, shaking my head. This can't be true. So I go home, and now I'm telling my wife. I have a wonderful wife, beautiful wife, and two teenage kids. And I'm like, something's got to be wrong, because I'm hearing this strange noise, and when I record it, upon playback, I'm hearing what sounds like intelligent speech answering the questions directly. So we make an appointment with the family doctor. This phenomenon continues. All right. So I'm able to go during my lunch break and record interactions, beings who start to answer questions that I pose directly, like my wife's name. My wife's from what used to be called East Germany. All right, so her name's Ansha. All right, it's an unusual name. It's not one of those random things that just beam down from a satellite, bounce from the atmosphere. At that moment, I ask the question. Upon playback, you hear her name. All right, and I say, well, what's the name of our pet that recently passed? And it was a rabbit. And you hear, upon playback, Puddles, which is the correct answer. So this starts to be a pattern of, okay, well, this is so irrational, so out there. So I go to the family doctor, and he's like, okay, well, we got to get the insurance to buy into this. I'm letting him listen to some of the playback, the vocalizations, the recordings I have, and I'm starting to get quite a collection. And he's like, well, we're going to go with audio hallucinations. We're going to use that to get the insurance company to start looking into this. That we're going to do a full panel, full spectrum, comprehensive blood work. We're going to go, because there's a chance that it's Lyme disease in this area of Pennsylvania. Lyme disease is pretty prevalent, and in advanced stages, Lyme disease can cause hallucinations. So everything. So, and then we're going to meet with a psychiatrist. We're going to meet with the ear, nose, and throat specialist, the ENT. We're going to go down every path. We're going to turn over every stone to try to get to a rational, prosaic explanation. Of course, knowing my luck, not the case. Everything ends up being, I've never been healthier. This is, it's wonderful on one hand, but every morning I'm waking up shaking my head saying, what am I doing here? What am I dealing with? And at first it's very frightening because you think, okay, well, I'm losing it, and now it's coming back that other people are starting to get curious about this strange phenomenon, which if you research it, it's called the electronic voice phenomenon. It's been something that has been a puzzle or a mystery for over half a century, actually a good bit more than that. So even Edison was trying to have some kind of communication from the other side, where he would be able to have somebody have a device on this side of saying the living, and be able to maybe he'd be able to affect something so that some kind of message would get through. Well, anyway, these beings, I started to have more and more personal, like I said, beyond just pets. These beings said that they could see into the future and stuff, and I asked what they were. They say they're alien. They say they're otherworldly. They don't eat where they are. And this starts to get, so I start getting a reputation where, the detailed MRIs, they're doing everything. It's just like everything is coming up, wonderful as far as, hey, I don't have a brain tumor. That's great, because there's not an organic reason. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not trying to get attention. And so we start having investigators across the country, people having me do remote viewing, where the one guy says, well, there's a purple can sitting on a picnic table next to this in this park. What's in the can? So a question is posed because they know I'm doing it around my lunchtime. The question's posed, and I have 10 minutes to get a response. And I don't tell them what I hear because that would alias and make up power of suggestion and what's called pareidolia, even audio pareidolia, where people can start to see patterns in randomness. All right, so I don't want to influence that because this is different than that. But there's a truth in people who look for patterns in clouds and stuff. But same thing in noise and white noise. I have these investigators, like I said, the answers are coming back right. That in this can that I have no knowledge of, and I can't access this with my own brain. This is beyond me. There's a battery in the can. That's the correct answer. So my reputation starts to spread. Something's going on. And I'm like, okay, I gotta make peace with this, I guess. And in my family doctor, the entities became more and more talkative, more and more involved in the minutia of my life. And my family doctor, he said that God spoke to him. He's a religious man, a spiritual man. That God told him, tell me that I have a gift. I looked at my family doctor and said, well, I'm not going to argue with God, but, if there's a possibility I could re-gift this, that'd be great, because it's a huge annoyance. It is our new normal, and it's becoming something that, first people thought, oh, this is a joke. This is ridiculous. This is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. And then the more I share the experience of others, where they're asking questions that I'm getting right and I can't know the answers to on my own, and they're listening to the recordings where the entities, that's what I call them, are saying the correct responses, intelligent responses. I guess most of the time, upon playback, you hear the response before I ask the question, which makes someone think, well, is this some form of telepathy? They are able to, read my mind, my thoughts before I actually speak the question. They already know what I'm going to ask. And then, but when it's outside my sphere of understanding, like some of the researchers in Canada, and I've had some with aerospace industry, I have no knowledge about this stuff, and they're asking questions that there's no possibility of me getting right on my own. You can't Google these questions and get a quick answer. So this is it's become, as I said, the new normal, and my life really has been transformed I was thinking, well, what can I do to, should I just keep it to myself, and this is like a private experience, or should I go out and try to tell people, hey, I don't think we're alone in the universe. I think I have forensic evidence that's making people talk, and people in important places, I'm saying the scientific community, Stanford University, researchers, who are credentialed and who have connections with multi-million-dollar businesses, and one person, well, actually two of them are billionaires, and it's just like these people are interested in little old me and nobody, and what I'm doing. It became something, it's one of those things where, like I said, at first it's kind of like this can't be true, this is a joke, right? And then my immediate family, some people started to think, and I'm not saying my wife and kids, but my cousins and even my siblings started to think, have I made some kind of deal with the devil? Am I into the occult? And I said, I don't do anything. There's no rituals here. I said, some of these researchers have had me do that old school track phone and modern smartphones. We do the test simultaneously to see if phones all record the same EVP, the message, when I ask the question. Remember, this only happens when the ear ringing happens. And you, upon playback, the old school track phones, and let's say old school phones, will pick up the message. The modern smartphones don't. Now, the reason the researchers say is because the modern smartphones use filtering algorithms to just about completely eliminate white noise, where the older models still have some white noise. And it's the white noise, apparently, one researcher, and I can't really say his name or anything, it's kind of a non-disclosure agreement, but he's like, they need the ambient white noise to craft into these units of energy that is picked up, whatever it is. I mean, again, I'm not technical, but it ends up being it's like the equivalent of human speech. But if you look at the construction of it, right, phoneme by phoneme, it's because they can analyze a voice print. You can analyze the waveform just like we would if you use a computer. You can analyze a picture and see if it's counterfeit or not. You go down to the pixel level, and the computer, the software will look at pixel by pixel and say, has this been manipulated? Is this Photoshop? Is this fake and counterfeit, or is it genuine? And it's the same thing you can do with audio. So an audio file, as long as you have the provenance where you can prove, hey, this is recorded and everything was controlled in controlled environment, the clip can be analyzed to basically test the authenticity of the waveform. Is it legit, or is this something that's been tampered with? All of mine have passed inspection. So the thing is, once I got into this, and then, again, now we're talking about years of interactions. I have over 1,800 clips of my interactions. Beings who claim to be alien, who claim to be otherworldly, who answer questions for other people. And the important thing is, after about this first 8 months of doing this, in 2018, I guess the summertime, I asked the entities to say, am I stuck with the library? Am I tethered to this location? Or can I interact with you elsewhere? And they said, well, just ask us and we will accompany you. I'm thinking, really? This was a breakthrough. Because before that, my lunch break, my coworkers are aware. They don't mind. And of course, it was mind-blowing at first, but it's like, hey, these beings never have said to do anything evil or anything like that. And it's during my lunch break. And it's like taking a phone call. And they've had videotapes of me. I don't go into any kind of, I don't have seizures. It's not like there's some kind of ventriloquism happening. I mean, to fake it, it's all just, there's no ritual. I call it a seance as far as, the documentaries I've created. One of them is called Subterranean Seance, but I don't actually have a seance. I mean, that's just, being artsy-fartsy. The idea is that now I can do this anywhere, anytime that they want to talk. Now, when I say that, I can't summon them to be here at such and such a moment, right? But every day they try to make contact. And in the middle of the night, I could be in a shopping mall. I can be in the middle of a park, and I can interact with beings that, again, say they're alien. I have the recordings, and they're mischievous too. These beings, they like to play games. When I do remote viewing for some of the researchers out west, all right, they call it the game. Right? Beings, are we playing the game again? And I'm like, yeah, if you think it's a game, sure. And that's what they look at. This is remote viewing to them is the game. Now there's a mischievous, strange, bizarre, quirky kind of humor about them too. That they seem to be interested in the most mundane, as I said, the minutiae of our lives. And they've told me that we're all being watched. All right, and they seem to make reports for someone. Now somebody said, well, they're angelic. I said, well, maybe they are. Maybe what we call alien today was angel back then, you know, and in ancient times. But they like when the pandemic started. The school district was giving out free food, all right, because for the kids, my teenage kids, they weren't allowed to go to school, but we could still circle by in our vehicles, everything, you know. At the beginning of the pandemic, they said, well, we have food to give each family, so we were waiting in line in my van, and I was with kids. You have to bring the kids along to get the food, and that weekly box of food from the school district. Right, so that helps out. I mean, I'm working from home then, and my wife's working from home. The kids are home. So during lunch break, you know, for going to get the package from the school, suddenly the ear ringing happens, and I try to like play it off with the kids there. And I say, I guess I better take this call. And you know, they're like, oh my God. And at the same time, it's like the ear ringing's happening. So I put the phone up to my ear, push record, on playback. You hear a voice, accusatory voice, saying, they don't use the food. I'm thinking, what? We use the food? We're getting this package of food, and it definitely helps out to have, you know, a week's worth of groceries from the school. So when I go home to my wife, I'm perplexed. I'm like, really strange. Here we have being, you know, judged or scrutinized. Apparently, we're not using the food. Are we doing something with this food? Are we wasting it? That we use all the food we keep. However, we give some to your parents that we don't like. That maybe they're rice and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I better go check. And so I talked to my parents that live just around the block. And yeah, they didn't like that. So they were being kind by not telling us, don't give us that food because we're not going to eat it. So they're throwing it away. So I thought, oh my gosh. That maybe that's what they were referring to, because we weren't wasting food, but it was an accusatory clip. Now, we have had other interactions which have been political. All right, of course, it's 2020, so everybody has a certain question on their mind. Presidential election in this country. Well, I asked the question. You know, I recorded, and they gave a response before my question. And again, I think this spotlights the nature of what I'm dealing with, the sense of humor. Nice, clear Donald Trump. Okay, and that's September 2020. Now, we know that's not how things turned out. There's some grand deception that we can't figure out. But I was told by some of the researchers, the important researchers out in Nevada, California, okay, you got to bury that clip. You make that public. Certain people who are going to latch onto that, and you know, before you know it, yeah, half of America, 50 million people are going to hate you. That reason alone, and maybe 50 million people or so are going to love you. You want to be that person, like in the end, the My Pillow guy. That's how important. They said this clip is dangerous. Or the one person's with the CIA. It's just like, hey, let's not talk about some things. So we categorically say the beings, they're correct about some things. They apparently what we understand as time isn't true. We don't have a grasp of what that really means. They're able to anticipate things. They're able to see into the future, apparently. But they also like to play games with us and to stir the pot. So like another example. This one's kind of corny, but you know, I want to be totally open with this. I was in the library. I was doing a session which was, where I knew contact was going to happen. But I had eaten a lot of food right before. Food that I didn't have any Beano with me. Food that made me quite gassy. So right before, I'm talking about 30 seconds before I get the ear ringing, a little flatulence. I pass gas. I fart. All right. So this is crazy. So the ear ringing happens. I push record. On playback, I have a voice, a feminine voice. Says, "He let a stinker." All right. Now think about it. That you have another realm, an invisible realm, that seems to be scrutinizing our species, but there's this twisted sense of humor, and to think that something as ridiculous, as nonsensical as that, even being a factor in an interaction, told me a lot about, and some insight into the sense of humor that I'm encountering. So there is some condescension, and the beings seem, not all of them, seem to have a view of our species as inferior. Probably the nicest way to put it. They were ridiculous. And I've asked about, okay, well, if you're going to be negative, I really don't want to deal with you. And then you have some people, man, that's demonic for sure, because they're not trying to help humanity. I said, no. I said, I understand. I said, maybe my idea is too Hollywood, or maybe the idea of evil. The evil is not concerned about flatulence. Evil, and if I had carried through and pushed that clip about who's going to win the presidential election, well, I probably would have been evil, because I full well knowing that certain groups of people would have embraced it in a way to use that may have been twisted. So by stepping back and realizing, hey, all I'm putting on the table through this interview, through all the interviews I've done, and all the podcasts, is they exist. That there's something going on here. Doesn't make any sense. The science, we've been told what's true in the universe. Well, I have forensic evidence that it's not, and that's a big deal, because I've had it. I've taken it to experts, audio forensic professionals who've actually been able to use bleeding edge computer software to analyze the clips, to again, number one, prove they're authentic, but more importantly, to start to peel away the layers. And I say that like an onion, there are layers and layers of data, of acoustic data. Some of it is subliminal. That's actually in a 10-second clip, let's say, where I'm interacting and you have a response. In that 10-second clip, they peel away layers upon layers, and there's subliminal conversations going on about what I'm saying before I say it. Not just the EVP, which is audible as a whisper, but below the surface, even more is being said. Now, for example, here's a perfect one. I'm a huge, passionate pigeon person. I import pigeons from all over the world, rainbow pigeons, emerald doves. I have African olive pigeons. It's my hobby. It's my passion since I was 8 years old. I'm 54 right now, and I have quite a collection of pigeons, including homing pigeons, which are pretty standard fare. I have some white homing pigeons, and I had some extra ones, and it was 2020, and there was a question on my mind as I had these extra pigeons. What do I do with my extra pair of white pigeons? And I thought, ear ringing happened. I thought, I'm going to ask Ethereal what I should do with this extra pair of white pigeons. On playback, hear a very loud Class A EVP. Understand, no one else is around, and it's an emphatic "sell 'em," right? Very clear, "sell 'em," and I'm like, oh wow! So they actually are paying attention to me and my pigeons, right? and then I'm like, I did not sell them because they told me to. I never take their advice in the sense. I always keep thinking, well, what would I do anyway? So yes, I did sell them, but not because they told me to. But the thing is, this is knowing that I'm really into pigeons and importing pigeons, and my son's into pigeons. My daughter has her pigeons, and we've been into pigeons for, like I said, since I was 8, but then all their lives. And here we have an EVP that's very strong, emphatic, a direct response, intelligent response to the question that follows. Again, the answers come before I ask, which is weird. I had this clip analyzed by an audio forensic professional who does what's called subliminal acoustic fingerprint. So what they do, they peel away the layers of all the data, all the audio waves and stuff that are actually across the spectrum. All right, so when this EVP happens, where the answer comes before my question about the pigeons, and I say sell them, right before that, on a subliminal level, there's a male and a female talking. Okay? They were able to reveal through the bleeding edge computer software, male and a female saying, what kind of pigeon does he have? Is it a homer? How much do you think he'll get? We're talking about a 7-second clip, has so much information embedded in there. Now, there's a group of people who believe in 2017, before this experience happened with me, and when it started in December, and I think it was either October or November, in the news, they were starting to talk about something called Havana syndrome. All right? Now, for the audience, I mean, that's where our diplomats in Cuba, Havana, that's what they call it, Havana syndrome, but now it's apparently all over the world this has been happening, seem to be targeted individuals, maybe with some kind of microwave energy or radio frequency, something that gives them brain damage, that gives them audio hallucinations, that gives them, weird feelings and paranoia. Now, again, this is something that's been in the news, and apparently the intelligence community is quite divided on what the real cause is, whether it may be state actors like Russia. They have a weapon that they can use psychotronically, whether it's certain frequencies they beam at somebody. But I'm a nobody, all right? So, I mean, I can't imagine that being the case with me, but there is one school of researchers out there who thinks, especially because of this clip, where they peel away that data, and there's a conversation going on beforehand, and they think, well, maybe Gary, and it's me, maybe he's actually stumbled into something that is being done to lots of people, and to probably some nefarious end, because it would be some kind of control. And so, because of the conversation, they think, is this something that technologically can be done? Now, I have seen on, I believe it was the Discovery Channel, that there are certain kinds of devices that have been created where you can beam something at somebody, like a message, and they will hear in their head voice. So now, again, I use Occam's razor, and if you're familiar with that, Occam's razor is the hypothesis that has the least number of exceptions or variables is usually the right thing. The simplest idea is usually the right thing. So to these researchers, that's ridiculous. Aliens and all that stuff, that's nonsensical. But the idea that the government has, or some group has a weapon that they're using to influence people, that's rational. So to them, to some of these researchers, I've got evidence that someone, probably people within our own society, who use tax dollars to maybe experiment on our own people, some kind of mind control. And that may explain that whole thing when I got the response that Trump won the election, that they wanted to bury that kind of stuff, because imagine if you could cause people to act and think a certain way. They don't even know it because it's subliminal level. And maybe I just happened to accidentally, with my old school track phone, stumble into some kind of mind control thing that's underway. I don't know. The theories are so exotic on both sides. And that doesn't really explain how they could answer questions before I ask them or do remote viewing for other people across the globe and get answers right. But then you start thinking, well, do we really believe these are alien? I mean, do we trust them, number one? Maybe they're saying they're alien. What's interesting, another aspect of this is if answer to a question has to deal with an animal, a frog, a pig, a rabbit, the entities will answer the question and try to sound like that animal. And that sounds absolutely absurd, ludicrous, insane. But it's all insane. When I start with that premise, when did I wake up in this nightmare, in a way? It's like, so if, like, I had one person, the answer to the question was frog. Right? So I was asking the question for somebody, and I did not know the answer. And the answer comes before my question, is that a frog? But they say it like you would almost imagine a frog saying it. And when the answer is about a pig, they sound like almost like a pig. Cartoonish, extreme, and I'm thinking, is this a sense of humor? But it weirds people out, because really it falls into one of two camps. Either this is something totally outlandishly exotic when it comes to like otherworldly or other dimensional, or it's something that we should also do a double take. If this is technology that's being transmitted and that you have people with maybe an agenda, maybe they're not even state people, maybe they're people almost like a force unto themselves, using American citizens or anywhere around the world as experiments, guinea pigs, to play games with. That's frightening, right? So that's the two camps that I'm caught between, the research camps. And I have, like I said, 1,800 clips, over 1,800 interactions where I asked them, like my wife, she was in Berlin with my one kid, my daughter, and so I'm over here in the States in the library, and I'm asking questions about what they're doing over there with no knowledge, things like that, and they get the right answer. And so, and it's like the thought that we could be on a threshold of something, a revelation of something of great significance either way. And that's what I keep going back to. I created these 2 documentaries of my investigation right now. And so from an artistic thing, that's what I'm doing with, I have a website, and these documentaries, the first one's called Subterranean Seance, The Evidence Speaks. Now, I asked the entities when I was starting to make this documentary in 2020, I said, is this something you want me to do? Again, the responses sometimes sound dated, just like he let a stinker. That sounds like 70s talk to me. And then you have, like, I asked them about, again, making the documentaries, and we're down with it. That's what they answer. Like, again, it's strange, and it's like, I keep trying to say, I have to have an open mind. I mean, I see myself in interviews. I've said it. If you're familiar with Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who, it's crazy. I'm that elephant, Horton, with the big ears, and little Who's on a speck of dust, and the rest of the animals in the jungle think Horton's crazy because he's hearing, from these miniature people, like a molecule, a microbe, civilization, microcosm, and they don't believe it. They think he's crazy, but in the end, he's revealed to be telling the truth. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to share glimpses of something profoundly disturbing, and but at the same time like a puzzle. I mean, I play chess. I love playing chess. I played chess also since I was about 8 years old, about the same time I started raising pigeons. And chess is like puzzles. I like to figure puzzles out. It's the chess moves, and when you have an opponent and how to outmaneuver them. And there's a similarity when it comes to understanding the electronic voice phenomenon, the enigma, the puzzle, trying to unravel it. And I'm enlisting other people who have the resources, who have the technical ability that I don't have, because I'm a nobody. And I have a clip where I ask them, why me? Right? why are they dealing with somebody like me? And they answer, I'm sorry, space. And there's like a smaller, wispy voice that says, and almost childlike, you're our favorite. Now, I laugh it off and say, well, that's a manipulation if I ever heard one. Because, of course, that's the answer everybody wants to hear about themselves, that they're special. And so I'm trying to understand their sense of humor. But if, again, if these were government agents and stuff, I can't imagine the end game. Why play a game with a nobody like me? I have no political aspirations. I have no money, really. I mean, I'm just a regular working guy who has a family and stuff, and I devote maybe 10% of my life in my recent life, to trying to get this crazy message before the people. I've actually had, credentialed, qualified, respected researchers who are looking at what I'm doing, and they're just baffled. And I'm all about transparency and full disclosure. So these 2 short documentaries, it costs less than the price of a McDonald's Happy Meal. And I usually say it costs less than a McDonald's Happy Meal, but you get more food for thought. I mean, that's the way I frame it. And that's because I have it hosted out there. Certainly not a money maker or anything like that. But it just, there's so much that makes you just think why and how. And I wake up every morning and I shake my head and I think, this can't be true. I mean, this is just ridiculous. I mean, and I think if you're a person over in this culture, I try to draw an example. Well, if these are aliens, they are in another dimension. They tell me they're in a different realm, but they're able to watch all of us all of the time. And I keep thinking that they have this strange sense of humor. It takes me back to the 70s, going back to the 70s and maybe early 80s, but I think it's the late 70s. Robin Williams, Mork and Mindy, Mork from Mork, and that quirkiness is a strange quality about their humor. Like I said, most of them seem to be looking down on our species as like flawed, and that we don't have our act together. But they're also able to try to make connections most of the time to try to build a bridge. Maybe that's the common denominator of humor. So yeah, they've never, like I said, they've never said anything that I would consider dangerous or who's going to win the presidency. Well, maybe some people would have considered that dangerous if it's the wrong answer. And just, so yeah, I've tried to put everything in perspective. I know the winning hand I have here, no matter what, interpretation, deciding who or what they really are, just that the evidence speaks for itself as far as, here it is, I'm daily able to interact with entities, say they're this, that I'm able to record it as proof, that I'm able to do it in a Faraday pouch. Now, if you're familiar with a Faraday cage, that is a construction that keeps electromagnetic signals, fields from going in and out. So if you put a cell phone in a Faraday pouch, which is just a smaller version of a Faraday cage, based on Michael Faraday, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the idea, I have a military-grade Faraday pouch. This is applied by these researchers. You put it in there, there's no way it should be able to record voices coming through that. But I am able to do that. Again, it goes beyond, they're trying to think, well, how is this possible? Now, we've got the phones, the Alcatel A205G, the schematics, the blueprints. We're taking a look. In the Obama years, that was, the nickname was for the Obama phone. That was the subsidized free phone that people who didn't have the means, they could get a phone that was paid for by the government. So you have that, that connection. I'm not saying the phone's been tampered with, but I'm saying this phone and the schematic, the blueprint inside. I mean, that's the thing. You can dissect it. There's nothing amiss. There's nothing in there that says, hey, well, this is the reason that this phone is able, this model phone is able to record entities. All outlandish, it's all outrageous, it's all crazy that it's true. And I've been submitting this information, doing the podcast, doing the interviews, doing newspaper interviews, doing interview with the Nashville Network, just everywhere. Scientists, a couple months ago, my wife and I were hanging out with Josh Gates from the Discovery Channel, giving him a thumb drive of data for his team. I'm elevating this, in my opinion, the right way. I'm getting the right people the people who have the respect, have already the credentials to investigate it. Because I can't. I can put it before people. Who am I again? I'm a nobody. But these people, they have the deep roots. They have the connections. They can, authenticate the clips. They can. I have the latest documentary I have out. Actually, you get it's called Frog Hollow Road. All right. And this is a road just down the street from where I live. But I thought, Frog Hollow, the voice in the one says it's a frog. I said, this is kind of cool, and the idea of mystery. And the bottom of Frog Hollow Road, there's this bamboo section, and there's this little creek that runs through. In the summertime, it's all foggy and mysterious. So I play on that kind of stuff. I'm trying to be artsy, but at the same time, I'm trying to, present something that if you just present it as it is, people are going to say, that's fake, there's no way that's true. When you start having the scientific evidence, that's the second one. The first documentary is it's like a treasure hunt of EVPs, and then we do a quick analysis of several of them. And then the second documentary, called Frog Hollow Road, it has the official forensic reports from three different groups around the world, and including the one that it has the subliminal acoustic fingerprint, where they analyze the pigeon clip. And again, I have so many clips I could talk about politics. I actually had a military guy, and if you remember a few years ago, I won't say again which branch of the military or anything, but the United States we were expecting Iran to strike back because we had taken out their nuclear engineer or whatever the guy was, one of their head honchos. Well, the Iran, the day the retaliation was expected, I received a request to ask Ethereal what was going to happen. Again, when I do these requests, I send the responses raw clips. I don't affect them. I don't put them through filters. I don't even make a suggestion of what I'm hearing. Send this to the investigator. Now, that night, we did have missiles fall. And the one bunker. Initially, they said that no one was injured, but then later comes out, of course, they filter that because they don't want people want to respond instantly and strike back again and cause escalation. But later they admitted that there were people hurt. Well, that was what this was related to, as far as when I was helping do some remote viewing, and in a sense not remote, future viewing, like what's going to happen tonight. All right, so everybody kind of knew that there was going to be something, and they did strike. And remember, they actually shot down a plane as well around their own airport. So it was a mess. But yeah, this is crazy stuff. This is I've enlisted some people who you would never imagine are actually talking to me. I'm a nobody, and it's like I could write a book about this. And but instead, for the artistic or creative side of me, I'm like, these short documentaries, we can just do the reports, and we can, because I've been told people can't accept the truth all at once. It has to be slowly stripped out, because the truth is so, if it's done too quickly, people are going to be afraid. And I'm just, it's the same thing with me. If these interactions were constant, I could never have been able to handle that. But if I'm able, I can say, well, it's been incremental and slowly building over the years since this started. So now I have built some kind of rapport I have no idea when most of the time they'll want to interact. And they said sometimes it's 2 in the morning, and I'm like, I'm not going to turn on my phone. I'm not going to push record. I want to sleep. And I was just like, maybe I'm selfish. Some people are like, you need to. I say, if you pay me enough money, then I'll be available and on call for this. But I said, right now it's nothing but a curiosity. I'm glad that I can help. And this is. I could go on. I could go on for hours talking about something that most people are going to say can't be true. No way would I. But
I was just wondering, you called them ethereal several times. Is that something that they gave you a title for, or is that just what you've nicknamed them?
What I've done, I can't see them. They've never materialized. I've even said, can you manifest? No. I've said, can you give me the winning numbers to the Powerball? And the answer is impossible. So I'm like, they can glimpse the future. Maybe it's selective, or maybe they can't. Maybe they have parameters they operate in. But no, I say they're ethereal entities. They say they're alien. They say they're otherworldly, but they're like people. All right. Now I've asked, are you dead? Are you people who've passed on? And they're not. That's one thing they will crystal clear say they're not people who have died. I can't summon somebody and say, well, it's your dead relative, because I've had this started really happening and it started getting some press around here. I've had people contact me, my son committed suicide, could you please? I'm like, I don't do that. These are not dead people. And then anyway, I wouldn't want to do that. I said, I don't want any involvement in things like that. All I can say about myself. Some people, how do you even handle this? I'd be crazy. I mean, I was on a radio station, 98 Rock, and they're like, that's insane. There's no way. How do you even do that? I said, I'm really good at one thing, compartmentalization. I'm able to realize and I'll put it on the table. When I saw through going on, I said, because sometimes there's some negative things being said, and I'm like, I really don't feel like dealing with this negative stuff. And then I figured out a weakness that they want me to continue interacting. That's the weakness. They need that attention. So I said, why should I care? In my realm, you're nothing more than a whisper. And you need me to translate it with some device. I said, if you just try to do whatever in my ear, it's a noise. I don't know what you're saying. It's an annoyance, but you need me to push record. So I said, how afraid should I be of a whisper? I said, what kind of reality do you have? Even if, and I tried with researchers, I said, I'm so open-minded to the possibility. But it's all crazy. Possibility. There's one microscopic medium, just when you go back to that Horton Hears the Who, but there's one little sentient entity that likes to play games, is a ventriloquist who would try to be male or female or an animal, but that's it. That it's a trickster. That it's actually, that I'm willing to say, because they try to, I've recorded so many different voices. Some sound definitely masculine, sound childlike, some sound feminine.
Have you tried recording with a different phone, or is that something that is only?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, all those old school phones, and I use a track phone because I say the old models before the smartphone, they will record the EVPs. Now my go-to choice is the Alcatel A205G, only because it's where I started with the modern smartphones, and including the most modern, because I've had to do these experiments for different scientists. They won't record it at all. And if I send a message from my recorded message from the track phone to a smartphone, the smartphone, it shows graphically the waveform of the speech, of the clip. It won't show the EVP. It will only show me. So it doesn't even acknowledge the white noise that's been crafted to be intelligent speech. Side by side, you could have two phones recording simultaneously, and I've had more than that. I've had people, I mean, this isn't something that just takes place by myself in the corner. I have other people there, so people can simultaneously turn on these phones. I have coming up outside Philadelphia with his investigating team, and he's going to live stream it. It's going to all be, all these microphones, everything in a controlled environment there, including Faraday pouches and stuff. We want to get the hard evidence that this, according to our understanding of science, this is not possible. But it is. It is happening. I already, like I said, I have all the reports and stuff. This is the real deal. Now, what that means, all I'm putting on the table is it's real. I'm not putting on the table anything more, because then when you start going down that rabbit hole, I mean, that just, then, oh, well, did Trump really win the election? No. Why do we even believe what they say is true? Now, they have had some insights that I have no access to, and they've been correct. So these researchers have got correct answers. But, they've also at times with me, I thought, been a little bit, playing games and like the idea of me winning Powerball. I mean, they say impossible. But, if you see the future, you should be able to see the winning numbers. I mean, just give me a couple. So you remember when we had the Powerball that was close to $1 billion, right? So, yeah, I kept pressing, and I have the recording. They say, go to the lottery. And they say Powerball. Okay? I go, I play. They didn't give me the numbers. I just thought, oh, well, they just want me to go to the lottery and play Powerball. I can send you this clip separately. Now, yeah, I won just for the Powerball. I mean, so I didn't win the jackpot. So I got a just a few dollars. And, yeah, that's a sense of humor. That, okay, I kept begging because I'm like, well, and I keep saying, if you really want me to have the world believe that you are, I said, there's a better way to do this. Give me the winning numbers. We'll have the live stream event where I win the jackpot. I'll give you all the credit as long as I keep the money. And that's the thing. They laugh at that. I have the recording. So they're tuned into something.
What do you think their purpose is?
To annoy me would be the first one. But, and I've done that. I said, I'm imperfect like every other human being. Long story short, I said, if this is my burden in life now, to say, maybe they are, little ornery devils sitting in hell. But it can't be. If I tell the whole world in the end, hey, this is what they like to joke about flatulence, and they seem serious about some things, and really, I mean, I think their purpose, what they want, is to be known. Again, this is taking off the table the idea that instead of them being real, that there's some kind of nefarious government or group going around doing things to screw with people. And imagine the kind of power you'd have if you could influence people subliminally, beaming and make them think that they thought a thought, but all along it was like this program that was being zapped into their brain, these frequencies that caused them to think a certain way, maybe to be ready for war with Russia, or maybe to psych people up for the election, to riot. Most of the researchers I'm interacting with believe they're mischievous. Most of the researchers believe that they are alien, or they for whatever reason they're convinced that's what these beings are. That the idea that aliens are in flying saucers and coming from stars and stuff far away may not be the way it really is. Maybe what we consider alien like that's a Hollywood notion. Maybe they're invisible entities who've always been here. The ultra-terrestrials, always on the planet, unseen, right alongside of us. And maybe it's like another dimension. I mean, I ask, and they have a realm, and they say in their realm they don't eat. All right. But I asked, what do you eat in your realm? These clips are all free. You can check them out on my compendium website. We Are Not Alone, and then Medium. If you look that up, We Are Not Alone is one word, and then the word Medium. You'll find Gary Arnold and everything I've done and been involved with. It's
Yeah,
all
I'll
right
put that
there.
in the
A lot
show
of it's
notes.
free.
I'll put that in the show
Yeah,
notes so that my listeners can go to it, and now
it's
they can
crazy
hear some of
fun.
the EVPs
Sure.
if you go to that. Okay.
Yeah, they can experience a lot of freebies, a lot of the researchers and stuff I've interacted with, a lot of the personalities, celebrities even, like Josh Gates, who's like a real life Indiana Jones. I mean, the Discovery Channel. Just recently, Gary Nolan for New Year's Eve, I spent with him. We were Zoom interacting. He had whole discussions up there for free. You can hear his take and his thoughts on this stuff. It's crazy. And this guy is Stanford. He's got 3 or 4 businesses that are tens of millions of dollars. I mean, why would he even give me the time of day except that he's looking at the data and he's saying, well, this is real. Now, so I'm presenting something that is perplexing, and then his friends in Harvard, because if you listen to it, and he's got one guy who's a billionaire, Theo, he's all in there, and so he's a sponsor of this stuff. There's
okay.
an interest.
We need to wrap this up. So why don't you, as the last thing, what would you tell others, or how could you suggest for others to do what you do? Are you just picked random, or can others kind of find their way with, say if I bought this type of track phone and started trying to communicate with the ethereal universe, that, can they do that? Yes.
Actually, I've been told, even though I'm considered special by them, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because I'm telling people, hey, you can do this. So I'm kind of like passing the baton. Those track phones, if you're interested, you can go on eBay and get that track phone, that make and model, for under $5, maybe no more than $7. Right? You can do this stuff on your own. And I'm all about one thing. I'm all about science, repeatability. The people I'm working with, the real researchers, they go about it with the scientific method. The reports I have, which you can check out, and the documentaries, they go back, they use the same process to get, work through the hypotheses. And so they analyze the data the same way with the same, so that way you have repeatability as well. Like, okay, can this be done over and over again? And it's so many phones, so many meters apart, turned on at the same moment. The question about what's going on in Ontario and this, and get it right. How is it possible? And so they start eliminating a lot, and that's why my personal feeling, this is not some psyops from the government. This is not Havana syndrome. This is something I'm convinced, and most of the researchers in that camp are convinced something other, alien, interdimensionals, ultra-terrestrials, even cryptids. And I've had audio engineers, not just in the forensic thing. I've had people who've been in the sound industry who were famous engineers for famous bands. They analyze, and they're like, wow, and they analyze it in so many different ways. I mean, I can't even conceive of what they're doing. And they're able to break it all, and they're saying, all these pieces are part of something larger, and they're trying to understand, how is it possible happening? That's what it goes back to. It's so out there.
To end the podcast, I want you to give a quote from the entities that is your favorite. Of all the things that they've discussed with you, what is your favorite quote?
Well, wow, that's a good question. There's so many. I mean, I could say a family quote. I'm going to go back to the pigeons. I mean, what I described. Why? Because it is so much a part of my life. I spend almost as much time working with my birds as I do working on the alien stuff. So the clip where I asked them, I can still remember exactly when I got the answer and how it happened. I asked them what to do with my white pigeons. What do I do with my pair of white pigeons? And they answer. They answer emphatically, sell them. So that to me is it speaks volumes. I mean, like I said, I have clips where they say my wife's name, obviously say my name, say the nickname of my brother, all kinds of things that are corny and personal. But this is because I have a passion for pigeons, because it's really my number one hobby. That's it. That's the one. And it has a sense of humor, because once they did the subliminal acoustic thing, and you find out that they're conversing about what kind of pigeons and how much do you think he'll get, and you have different voices. That's fascinating. It's like right there you have a whole conversation bubbling just below, the audible level, below the EVP itself. Crazy.
I want to give a shout out to Ben, the editor of this show. Ben also has a podcast called Two Marks and a Spark. You can find it wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Check it out. You won't be sorry.